Now, okay, so Clement pens his letter in 98 AD. Then you have Ignatius, who is writing his his 7 letters between 105 and 115. Um, those are solid dates there. I don't know anyone who would dispute those. Uh, the reason for saying, well, these were written later is because, or especially with John, is because of the theology in John. Or they'll try to say, well, John in his final form was around 90 because of this introduction, the prologue. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Um, John is coming from a completely different school than Mark or the Synoptics. In fact, Mark and Luke seem to be coming from the same school. Um, School is a bad school of thought about what Christ taught. Um, Matthew is a very Judaized work, and it probably is the Ebionite gospel. John seems very Greek. I mean, it is logos and all this kind of stuff, and very Pauline as well. I actually originally thought Paul wrote the Gospel of John, but think about it: if an apocalyptic preacher, miracle man, uh, dies and is believed he's resurrected, I mean, let's just take a minimalist view of this. It's not going to take that long for, if he has followers that are uh, stringent about this belief and you're spreading this belief and it's catching on. You could argue because of circumstances, right place, right time, that I mean, it wouldn't 5 years could go by and you would have that degree of advancement, at least in one sect, in one school. It's said that John was written at Ephesus. That, I mean, from, again, external early church um, writings, that seems about right. This whole thing of, I heard Bart Ehrman say this, and he knows it not to be true, that all the apostles were illiterate, and they were Aramaic speaking and didn't speak Greek. And the Gospels were written by highly trained people who could read and write in Greek. First of all, Mark is atrocious. Yeah, even reading it in English, you can tell. You can tell the drastic difference between Mark and Luke, for instance. And there is a the Copia Adulterae that has Jesus writing in the sand. It gets moved from Luke to John, which people think that's unusual, but that's only a Protestant would think that's unusual. That actually lends more authenticity to it. There was plenty of stuff that the church accepted that just wasn't in the four canonical stuff. Oh yeah, he said this and that. And there were quotes. There's even parts of Thomas that the sayings Gospel of Thomas that the early church had, as well as parts of the Gospel of James. It wouldn't, for all the crazy preaching that Paul did, and crazy, I mean, just going out there and keep Lydia. She was dyer of purple cloth. That was high end job. that was rich, easy to hire scribes. Not to mention that Greek, at that time, Greek, you had the Septuagint that the Jews are translating Greek. Greek was the Yiddish of the time, basically. It was, you read stuff in Hebrew or Greek. Aramaic was kind of like, ugh. I mean, if you want someone to hear something and know it, you wrote it in Greek. Greek was the language of business as well. You go to some of the poorest parts of the world, the Middle East, and they'll speak 5, 6, 7 languages. There's no reason, I mean, there's every reason to believe that Christ and all the apostles spoke Greek. Could they write in Greek? Some of them probably. I mean, Peter probably had to do transactions. I mean, most of these people, if you actually look at it, were related. There's only about 3 families there. And then with Paul's missionaries, you had people who could read and write. Even in Acts, you have the Ethiopian that actually reads. Christ actually is said to read. There's an account of him, again, a throwaway line, of him reading from the Isaiah scroll. Now, what he reads, you're like, what the hell does that? What does that have to do with anything? You know, or at least that's what it would be thought of at the time. And we know that Jews always taught that even when Europe was illiterate in the Middle Ages, Jews were teaching their children how to read Hebrew. So we see this mirrored even every century later on. Even at the emergence of Islam, you had Arabic as the liturgical language, Greek as the business language, and Syro-Aramaic as the daily language. And that's in the darkest depths of the darkest depths of the Dark Ages. The height of the Roman power, or basically at the most grand Rome was, 1st and 2nd century. Of course, you would have. I mean, is that shocking that the apostles and Christ wouldn't? The area that we know as Palestine, Decapolis, Samaria, Judea, had been Hellenized for hundreds of years. I mean, do people not remember the Maccabees? So, and again, the Septuagint at Alexandria. Alexandria had one of the biggest populations of Jews. So did Babylon. These were literate places, and the Jews were a literate people. It's just shock. I mean, Bart Ehrman says these things. He knows that it's foolish. Then again, as James Pender's box pointed out, Bart Ehrman's students do all his work for him nowadays. Which, yeah, they do. Take it easy.